Module 9 was all about proving who you are. Now Module 10 is all about what happens next. Once a system knows who you are, what are you actually allowed to do? The concept is called access control, and failures here are responsible for some of the most damaging breaches in recent years. Not because the concept is complicated, it isn't, but because organizations consistently take the path of least resistance. This module introduces the principle of least privilege, explains the blast radius concept, and addresses the single most overlooked access control problem: the people who have already left. Once a system knows who you are, it decides what you are allowed to do. This second step is called authorization, and it is just as important as the first. Think of it in terms of a hospital. Authentication is the ID badge check at the entrance. It confirms that you are a member of staff and have a right to be in the building. But once you are inside, not everyone should be able to walk into the operating theater, access the pharmacy, or read all patient records. What you can do inside the building depends on your role. A porter, a nurse, and a surgeon all pass the same entrance check, but they have access to very different areas. Authentication: who are you? Authorization: what are you allowed to do? Authentication is showing your passport at the airport to confirm your identity. Authorization is your boarding pass, specifying which seat you may sit in and which lounge you may enter. Why both matter? Strong authentication without proper authorization is like a heavily fortified front door on a building where every room inside is unlocked and labeled. An attacker who gets through authentication by stealing credentials, for example, immediately has access to everything, unless authorization limits what they can reach. This is why MFA and least privilege are complementary, not interchangeable. You need both. Least privilege is the single most important concept in access control. It is also one of the most consistently violated, because following it requires ongoing effort, not a one-time setup. The principle is simple. Every person, application, or system should have access to exactly what they need to do their job, and nothing more. Not probably what they need, not what their predecessor had, not everything to be safe, exactly what is needed, nothing more. The reason is equally simple. Access that exists can be exploited. Access that does not exist cannot. If an accounts payable clerk's account is compromised, the damage is contained to what that account could reach. If that same clerk had been given administrator rights for convenience, the damage is total. Security professionals talk about blast radius, the area of damage an attacker can cause from a single compromised account. Least privilege minimizes blast radius. A compromised account with limited access causes limited harm. A compromised account with administrator rights causes unlimited harm. Consider the examples. An accounts payable clerk needs the finance system to raise invoices, supplier contact records, and view-only access to bank statements. They do not need HR records, the ability to create new bank payees, or administrator access to any system. A customer service agent needs read access to the customer database and the ticketing system. They do not need to modify financial records or access system configurations. An IT support technician needs administrator access to the specific systems they support. They do not need permanent elevated access. Time-limited admin sessions are the right approach. A contractor on a short-term project needs access to the specific project files, with an account that expires at the end of the engagement, not broad file system access, not access that persists after the contract ends. Reducing blast radius does not require expensive tools or complex processes. It requires being deliberate about what access each person needs, and about removing it promptly when it is no longer needed. In practice, organizations consistently make the same access control mistakes. Understanding them makes them easier to spot and challenge when you encounter them. Everyone gets admin rights because it is easier to give everyone admin access than to manage individual permissions. IT teams under pressure take the path of least resistance. The result, when any account is compromised, the attacker immediately has full system control. Access never gets removed, nobody tracks when roles change or people leave. The offboarding process does not include a structured access revocation step. Former employees and contractors retain access they should not have. Dormant accounts with old credentials are prime targets, often less monitored than active ones. Shared accounts for convenience. Teams share a single login to avoid managing individual accounts. A shared admin account. A shared social media login. When something goes wrong, there is no way to know who did what. Accountability disappears. Access granted broadly at onboarding. It is faster to copy an existing employee's access profile than to think carefully about what the new person actually needs. New starters arrive with access accumulated over years by their predecessor. Every unnecessary permission is an unnecessary risk. No regular access review. Nobody has time. Access reviews feel like administrative overhead rather than security work. Over time, permissions drift. People accumulate access as their roles evolve, and rarely lose it when it is no longer needed. And now the pattern that most people underestimate, the lever problem. Research consistently shows that a significant proportion of data breaches involve accounts belonging to people who have already left the organization. These accounts are often overlooked because they are no longer active in day-to-day operations, are less likely to be monitored, and may be known to others, former colleagues, business partners, who can still use them. The fix is structural. Offboarding must include a mandatory checklist-driven process for revoking all access on the last working day. Not the following week, not when it gets around to it. The same day. Least privilege is not a configuration you set once. It requires regular review because access drifts over time. People change roles, take on new responsibilities, move between teams, and accumulate permissions along the way. Without periodic review, an organization's access controls gradually diverge from least privilege. At its simplest, an access review asks 3 questions for every user account. Does this person still work here? Is their current role the same as when their access was last set? Does the access they have match what their current role actually requires? For many small organizations, this is a spreadsheet exercise that takes a few hours once or twice a year. The effort is modest, the protection is significant. Some events should trigger an immediate review without waiting for the scheduled cycle. Someone leaves or changes role. A security incident occurs. A new system is deployed. A supplier relationship ends. The principle of least privilege applies just as much to your personal digital life as it does to organizations. You make access control decisions every day. Which apps you allow to access your location, which services you connect to your Google or Apple account, which people you share files with. Applying least privilege thinking to these decisions significantly reduces your personal risk. Review app permissions regularly. Check which apps on your phone have access to your location, contacts, microphone, camera, and messages. Remove permissions that do not make sense for the app's function. A Torch app does not need your contacts. A game does not need your location. Revoke access to old connected apps. In your Google, Apple, and social media account settings, there is a list of third-party apps you have granted access to over the years. Review it. Remove any you no longer use or cannot explain. Use separate email addresses. A primary email for important accounts, banking, work. A secondary one for newsletters, shopping, and services you trust less. If the secondary address is compromised, your primary email and everything linked to it remains unaffected. Do not share account credentials, even with trusted people. If shared access is genuinely needed, use proper sharing features, shared folders, team accounts, rather than shared passwords. Log out of shared or public devices. Always log out when using a computer that is not yours. Staying logged in on a shared device leaves your account accessible to the next user. The Connected Apps audit takes 10 minutes and removes a significant number of unnecessary exposure points. In Google, myaccount.google.com, then security, then third-party apps with account access. In Apple, settings, your name, password, and security. Apps using Apple ID. In Facebook, settings, security, and login, apps, and websites. Remove anything you do not recognize or no longer use. Access control is not a standalone topic. It connects directly to almost every other module in this course, because how access is controlled determines how much damage any other failure can cause. Module 6, Passwords. Even the strongest password only protects an account as far as that account's permissions allow. A strong password on a least privilege account is far safer than a strong password on an administrator account. Credentials are the key. Least privilege limits what the key opens. Module 9, Authentication. MFA and least privilege together are the most effective double layer of defense against account compromise. MFA slows attackers down. Least privilege limits what they can do if they get through. Module 8, Insider Threats. The most effective defense against malicious insiders is ensuring they can only reach what they genuinely need. Overprivileged accounts make insider incidents significantly more damaging and significantly harder to contain. Module 5, Ransomware. Ransomware spreads across networks using whatever access the compromised account has. An account with network-wide file permissions gives ransomware network-wide reach. Least privilege directly limits ransomware's blast radius. Access control is the connective tissue of security. Getting it right does not require expensive tools or complex processes. It requires being deliberate about what access each person needs, about reviewing that access regularly, and about removing it promptly when it is no longer needed. In ShieldNet terms, this maps to two controls. SB1, Control User Access, requires unique accounts for every person, with minimum permissions. SB2, Secure Hiring and Exit, addresses the leaver problem, screening before people join, and prompt revocation of all access on the day they leave. Module 10 is complete. Module 11 moves from who can access your systems to how you keep the devices themselves safe. Alright, before we move on, here are the 3 things from this module I want you to hold on to. Number 1, least privilege. Every person, application, and system should have access to exactly what they need, and nothing more. Number 2, blast radius. The damage an attacker can cause from one compromised account. An administrator account equals unlimited blast radius. Number 3, the leaver problem is the most underestimated access control risk. Revoke all access on the last working day, every time. Now, before you move on, there is one question. A marketing assistant is given full administrator rights on the company's server to make it easier to install design software. Their account is later compromised via phishing. What can the attacker now do? The correct answer is B. Admin rights are not scoped to a task, they are global. The moment that account was compromised, the attacker gained full control of the server. Every file, every system, every configuration. This is exactly what blast radius means. The correct approach grants only the specific permission needed to install the software, not the full administrator. When the installation is complete, remove the elevated access entirely. Next up, Module 11, Keeping Devices Safe. See you there.